One Savior put a chain to save our lives.
And it shall be, when all these words come upon you, the blessing and the curse which I have set before you, and you shall bring them back to your heart among all the nations, where Yahuwah your Elohim drives you, and shall turn back to Yahuwah your Elohim and obey his voice, according to all that I command you today, with all your heart and with all your being, you and your children. Then Yahuwah your Elohim shall turn back your captivity. He shall turn back your captivity and shall have compassion on you. And he shall turn back and gather you from all the peoples where Yahuwah your Elohim has scattered you. If any of you are driven out to the farthest part under the heavens, from there Yahuwah your Elohim does gather you, and from there he does take you. And Yahuwah your Elohim shall bring you to the land which your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. And he shall do good to you, and increase you more than your fathers. And Yahuwah your Elohim shall circumcise your heart, and the heart of your seed, to love Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being, so that you might live. And Yahuwah your Elohim shall put all these curses on your enemies and on those who hate you, who persecuted you. And you shall turn back and obey the voice of Yahuwah, and do all his commands, which I command you today. Barak Yahuwah. Deuteronomy 31 through 8. Deuteronomy 31 through 8. What is that he wants us to remember? What is that he wants us to celebrate like we lost our proverbial mind? What is it that he wants us to remember? And what is it that he wants us to celebrate? Now, if you are a student of Scripture, you understand that this is a gathering of his people. This represents the seventh trumpet. The seventh trumpet points to two things. It represents 7,000 years. It represents the gathering of his people back to the land. It represents the gathering of his people back to the land. It represents deliverance out of Egypt and being brought back into the land. But again, it also points towards eternity. It also points towards eternity. There's a remnant inside of the remnant. There's a remnant that's inside of the remnant that ought to be celebrating now. Barak Yahuwah. See, everybody else is going to celebrate when at the seventh trump sound. When the seventh trump sound, everybody else is going to celebrate. But he is calling a remnant now, a remnant inside of remnant, to celebrate now, to obey his voice now. Barak Yahuwah. Everybody ain't going at the same time. Everybody is not going at the same time. He's coming back for Yahudah. He's coming back for Yahudah first. Barak Yahuwah. Yahudah goes first. In other words, that he had delivered them from Egypt, that he done delivered them from bondage, that he delivered them from crime, that he has delivered them from slavery. He wants us to remember that that he has delivered us from Egypt, from crime, from bondage, from slavery. Barak Yahuwah. And on this day, to celebrate, not only to remember what he has done, but to look forward on what he is going to do. Now, looking here in Isaiah, the 66th chapter, this is when the rest of the remnant has been gathered from amongst the nations. Barak Yahuwah. Because remember, he's coming for a remnant inside the remnant, and then he's coming back for the rest of the remnant that is going to be gathered from amongst the nations. Looking at Isaiah 66. Verses 23 through 24. 1 second. Let me look at these notes. Barak Yahuwah. All right. For as the new heavens and the new earth that I make stand before me. For as the new heavens and the new earth that I make stand before me, declares Yahuwah. So your seed and your name shall stand. And it shall be that from new moon to new moon, and from Sabbath to Sabbath, or Shabbat to Shabbat, All flesh shall come to worship me before me. All flesh shall come to worship before me, declares Yahuwah. And they shall go forth and look upon the corpse of the man who has transgressed against me. For their worm shall not die, and the fire not be quenched, and they shall be repulsive to all flesh. And they shall be repulsive to all flesh. Barak Yahuwah. So those who make it are going to see the corpse of those who did not obey him. And the worm shall not die. The worm shall not die. Now this is not eternity here. Yeah, this is the millennial reign. But here he is calling his people to remember something. Here he is calling his people to remember something. They are going to see the corpse of man to remember what he has delivered us from. Death, bondage, slavery. We are going to have a physical example to see what he delivered us from. Death, bondage, and slavery. Barak Yahuwah. Do you not understand that when the trumpet sound, that this is a representation of being delivered from Egypt, being delivered from Mizraim? We are in Egypt now. The whole earth is Egypt. The whole earth, we shall desire to be to leave this place. I hope and expectation, this is not our home, but we are pilgrims in a foreign land. Barak Yahuwah. So the whole earth is Egypt. The whole earth is considered Egypt, not the United States. And we should be going to Ghana. That the Ghana is Egypt. The United States, Egypt. South Dakota, Egypt. The whole earth is Egypt. Barak Yahuwah. This place is not our home. It don't matter what side. If we just read that he is coming to gather his people from the four corners of the earth, this plain flat earth, he is coming to gather his people. Barak Yahuwah, finally being delivered from Egypt, from the hands of Pharaoh. This is what this represents, and we are called to remember. We are called to remember, Barak Yahuwah, all his mighty acts that he did for our forefathers. He wants us to remember the Torah. He wants us to remember what he has done for us. He wants us to obey him with all our heart, with all our mind, with all our being. Now the question is, have you been delivered from crime? Have we been delivered from crime? Barak Yahuwah. Because we must be delivered from crime in order for him to gather us. Barak Yahuwah. And if you have been delivered from crime, then you ought to be celebrating. You ought to be celebrating both now and then. Let's turn to Revelation chapter 20. Let's look at this a little deeper. And I saw a messenger coming down from the Shamayim, from the heavens, having the key to the pit of the deep, and a great chain in his hand. And he seized the dragon, the serpent of old, who is the devil and Satan, and bound him for 1,000 years. And he threw him into a pit of the deep, and shut him up, and set a seal on him, so that he should leave the nations no more astray until the 1,000 years were ended. This is the millennial reign. And after that, he has to be released for a little while. And I saw thrones, and they sat on them, and judgment was given to them. And the lives of those who had been beheaded because of the witness they bore to Yahuwah, and because of the word of Elohim, and who did not worship the beast, nor his image, and did not receive his mark upon their foreheads, or upon their hand. And they lived and reigned with Messiah for 1,000 years, the millennial reign, the wedding feast. And the rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were ended. This is the first resurrection. This is the first resurrection. This is what we want to be a part of, the first resurrection. For the second death has no power over those who obtain the first resurrection. Blessed and set apart in the one having part of the first resurrection. The second death possesses no authority over these, but they shall be priests They shall be priests of Elohim and of Messiah, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. And when the 1,000 years have ended, Satan shall be released from his prison, and he shall go out to lead the nations astray which are in the four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together for battle, who number it as the sand of the sea. And they came up over the breadth of the earth and surrounded the camp of the set apart ones in the beloved city. And fire came down from Elohim out of the heavens and consumed them. And the devil who led them astray was thrown into the lake of fire and sulfur. Bear with me. I lost my spot. Lake of fire and sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet are. And they shall be tortured day and night forever and ever. And I saw a great white throne, and books were opened, and another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged from what was written in the books, according to their works. Oh yeah, we have to work while it's day. If a man don't work, he don't eat. And the sea gave up the dead who were in it, and death and Sheol gave up the dead who were in them, and they were judged each one according to his works. Works of what? Works of righteousness. For we must believe, we must obey the Torah, we must work out our salvation with fear and trembling. Barak Yahuwah. We must work while it's day, because night comes where no man can work. And death and Sheol were thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death. And if anyone was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. Hazon, or in other words, Revelation chapter 20, verses 1 through 15. We must work. I don't know why I keep doing that. Rock Yahuwah. We must work while it is still day. If you understand, Satan represents Pharaoh. He is Pharaoh in Egypt. Represents crime. It represents bondage. It represents slavery. This flesh is Egypt. It represents bondage and slavery. Barak Yahuwah. We are not to be walking according to the flesh, but according to the spirit. Now, he's calling upon us to remember something. And that 7,000 years at this point, this is when Satan is going to be seized. And this is where crime and bondage is going to be removed from the earth. There's nothing new under the sun. He is going to be seized for 1,000 years. And that 7,000 year, at this point, this is where Satan is going to be seized. Just don't want to mess up the understanding. So in the 7,000 years, this is when Hashatan is going to be seized for 1,000 years. Barak Yahuwah. Again, the Feast of Trumpets, it represents the beginning of the 7,000 year, right? It represents the beginning of the 7,000 year and the end of the 7,000 year, moving into eternity. Okay, Barak Yahuwah. This is when Egypt is going to be destroyed, and this is when crime and bondage is going to be removed. There's nothing new under the sun. This is when Egypt is going to be destroyed, but this is not yet eternity yet. But we are looking forward, and when Egypt is going to be destroyed eternally. We are looking forward for when Egypt is going to be destroyed for eternity. Rock Yahuwah. 1 second. All right. When we are finally delivered from Egypt, from bondage and crime and Pharaoh, This is the millennial reign. This is a representative of Isaiah, the 66th chapter. This is where the remnant is going to come and be caused to remember in the millennial reign. Look up at the dead bodies, delivered and being delivered from slavery, delivered from bondage, delivered from the hands of Pharaoh. He is going to cause them to remember. He is going to cause them to remember him and him alone, Yahuwah. And I'm going to bring you here from month to month, from new month to new month, from Shabbat to Shabbat to worship before me. And I am going to remind you for what I did for you. He is going to remind them for what he has done for them, to come up and look at the corpse of these dead bodies, to show the people, to show his covenant people what he delivered them from: death, bondage, Rock Yahuwah, death and bondage, sin. And I'm going to give you a reminder by the dead bodies every time you come to worship before me. This is the first resurrection. There ought to be a shout in that person's mouth. They ought to be celebrating. We ought to be celebrating. And from year to year and to month, he is going to remind us this is going to be a remembrance. He is going to show the dead bodies and remind us what he had delivered us from. Remind us that he delivered us from Egypt, that he delivered us from death. There's going to be a remnant of mankind left in the first resurrection. There's going to be a remnant of mankind left in the first resurrection. Let me see. Those who do not come up against Zion to war against him, but after 1,000 years, they are going to come up against Jerusalem like the sand of the sea. And these are who Satan is going to lead astray. These are who Satan is going to lead astray. Right, Yahuwah. All right. Let's read 1 Corinthians chapter 15, 52 through 53. And it reads, in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. We still talking about the Feast of Trumpets. For the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. For the corruptible has to put on incorruption, and the mortal to put on immortality. This is the confirmation. This is confirmation to Ezekiel chapter 36 and 37. Ezekiel chapter 36, verses 1 through 38 reads, and you, son of man, prophesy to the mountain of Israel, and you shall say, O mountains of Israel, hear the word of Yahuwah. Thus says the Master Yahuwah, because the enemy has said of you, Aha, the height of old have become a possession. Therefore prophesy, and you shall say, Thus says the Master Yahuwah, because they laid you waste and swallowed you up on every side, so that you became the possessions of the rest of the nation. And you are taken up by the lips of talkers and slandered by the people. Therefore, O mountain of Israel, hear the word of the Master Yahuwah. Thus says the Master Yahuwah to the mountains, and to the hills, to the rivers, and to the valleys, and to the desert ruins, and to the cities that have been forsaken, which became a prey and a mocking to the rest of the nations all around. Therefore, thus says the Master Yahuwah, have I not spoken in my burning jealousy against the rest of the nations, and against all Edom, who gave my land to themselves as a possession, with all joy of heart, with scorn in their being, to drive it out for a prey? Therefore, prophesy concerning the land of Israel, and you shall say to the mountain, and to the hill, to the rivers, and to the valley, thus says the Master Yahuwah. See, I have spoken in my jealousy and my wrath, because you have borne the shame of the nations. Therefore, thus says the Master Yahuwah, I have lifted my hand in an oath, that the nations that are around you shall bear their own shame. But you, O mountain of Israel, put forth your branches and bear your fruit to my people Israel, for they are about to come. For look, I am for you, and I shall turn to you, and you shall be tilled and sown, and I shall increase man upon you, all the house of Israel, all of it. And the city shall be inhabited, and the ruins rebuilt, and I shall increase upon you man and beast, and they shall increase and bear young, and I shall make you inhabited as of old, and do better for you than at your beginnings. And you shall know that I am Yahuwah, and I shall let men, my people Israel, walk upon you, and let them possess you, and you shall be their inheritance, and no longer let you add to their bereavement. Thus says the Master Yahuwah, because they say to you, you devour men and have bereaved your nation. Therefore you shall no longer devour man, and no longer bereave your nation, declares the Master Yahuwah. And no longer shall I let you hear the insults of the nations and reproach of people. You shall bear no longer cause your nations to stumble, declares the Master Yahuwah. And the word of Yahuwah came to me, saying, Son of man, when the house of Israel dwelt in their land, they defiled it by their own ways and deeds. To me, their way was like the uncleanness of a woman in her monthly period. So I poured out my wrath on them for the blood that they shed on the land, and for the idols they defiled it. And I scattered them among the nations, and they were dispersed throughout the land, and I have judged them according to their ways and their deeds. And when they came to the nations, wherever they went, they profaned my set-apart name. For it was said of them, these are the people of Yahuwah, and yet they have gone out of his land, but I had compassion on my set-apart name, which the house of Israel had profaned among the nations. Wherever you went, and I shall set apart my great name, which has been profaned among the nations, which you have profaned in the midst. And the nations shall know that I am Yahuwah, declares the Master Yahuwah, when I set apart in you before their eyes, and I shall take you from among the nations, and I shall gather you out of all lands, and I shall bring you into your own land, and I shall sprinkle clean water on you, and you shall be clean from your filthiness, and from all your idols I cleanse you. And I shall give you a new heart, and put a new spirit within you. And I shall take the heart of stone out of your flesh, and shall give you a heart of flesh, and put my spirit within you. And I shall cause you to walk in my laws, and guard my right rulings, and shall do them. And you shall dwell in the land that I give your fathers, and you shall be my people, and I shall be your Elohim. And I shall save you from all your uncleannesses, and I shall call for the grain and increase it, and I shall bring no scarcity of food upon you. And I shall increase the fruit of your trees and the increase of your fields, so that you need never again bear the reproach of scarcity of food among the nations. And you shall remember your evil ways and the deeds that were not good, and you shall loathe yourself in your own eyes for the crookedness of your abomination. Now for your sake I'm acting, declares the Master Yahuwah. Let it be known to you, be ashamed and blush for your ways, O house of Israel. Thus says the Master Yahuwah, on the day that I cleanse you from all your crookednesses, I shall cause the cities to be inhabited, and the ruined places shall be rebuilt, and the land that was laid waste tilled instead of being ruined, before the eyes of all who pass by. And they which are left all around you shall know that I, Yahuwah, have rebuilt the destroyed places and planted what was laid waste. I, Yahuwah, have spoken it, and I shall do it. Thus says the Master Yahuwah. Once again, I shall let the house of Israel inquire of me to do for them. I shall increase the man like a flock, as a set apart flock, and the flock of Jerusalem at her appointed times. So shall the wasted cities be filled with flocks of men, and they shall know that I am Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Ezekiel 37, 1 through 28. The hand of Yahuwah was upon me, and took me out by the Spirit of Yahuwah, and set me down in the midst of the valley, and it was filled with bones. And he made me pass among them all around, and see, there were very many on the surface of the valley, and see, they were very dry. And he said to me, Son of man, will these bones live? And I said, O Master Yahuwah, you know. Again he said to me, prophesy to these bones, and you shall say to them, O dry bones, hear the word of Yahuwah. Thus says the Master Yahuwah to these bones. See, I'm bringing into you a spirit. Yes, we must have his spirit. We must have his ruach. Just because you walking on this earth don't mean that you have his spirit. He only gives his spirit to those who are found trustworthy, those who are willing to obey him. Will these dry bones live, O Master Yahuwah? Son of man, will these bones live? He say, and I said, O Master Yahuwah, you know. Again he said to me, prophesy to these bones, and you shall say to them, O dry bones, hear the word of Yahuwah. Thus says the Master Yahuwah to these bones. See, I am bringing into you a spirit, and you shall live. And I shall put sinews on you, and bring flesh upon you, and cover you with skin, and put a spirit in you, and you shall live. And you shall know that I am Yahuwah. And I prophesied as I was commanded. As he was commanded, he prophesied. We must follow his commandments. We must obey. As I prophesied, there was a noise, and there was a rattling, and the bones came together, bone to bone. And I looked and saw sinews and flesh came upon them, and skin covered them, but there was no spirit in them. But there was no spirit in them. He said then to me, prophesy to the spirit, prophesy, son of man, and you shall say to the spirit, thus says the Master Yahuwah, come from the four winds, O spirit, and breathe on these killed ones, so that they live. And I prophesied as he commanded, and the spirit came into them, and they lived. We need his ruach, we need his spirit. And stood up on their feet a very great army. And he said to me, Son of man, these bones are all the house of Israel. The whole house. The whole house. This is the whole house. See, they say our bones are dry. Our expectancy has perished, and we ourselves have been cut off. Therefore prophesy, and you shall say to them, thus says the Master Yahuwah, see, O my people, I am opening your burial sites, and shall bring you up from your burial sites, and shall bring you into the land of Israel. And you shall know that I am Yahuwah, when I open your burial sites, my people, and bring you up from your burial sites, and I shall put my spirit in you, and you shall live. And I shall settle you in your own land, and you shall know that I, Yahuwah, have spoken, and I have done it. Then take another stick and write on it, for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and for all the house of Israel, his companions. Then bring them together for yourself into one stick. This is the whole house. This is the whole house. This is Yahudah and Ephraim, and the companion, and the stranger who has attached himself. This is the whole house. And they shall become one in your hand. And when the children of your people speak to you, saying, won't you show us what you mean by these? Say to them, thus says the Master Yahuwah. See, I am taking the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribe of Israel his companions, and I shall give them unto him with the stick of Yehuda, and make them one stick, and they shall be one in my hand. And the stick on which you write shall be in your hand before their eyes, and speak to them, thus says the Master Yahuwah. See, I am taking the children of Israel from amongst the nations, whither they have gone, and shall gather them from all around, and I shall bring them into the land, and I shall make them one nation in the land, on the mountain of Israel, and one sovereign shall be sovereign over them all, and let them no longer be two nations, and let them no longer be divided into two reigns, and they shall no longer defile themselves with their idols, nor with their disgusting matters, nor with any of their transgressions. And I shall save them from all their dwelling places in which they have sinned, and I shall cleanse them, and they shall be my people, and I be their Elohim. Daud, my servant, is sovereign over them, which we know YAHUSHA is going to be sovereign over them, and who Barak Yahuwah, who came through this lineage, Barak Yahuwah, who was Barak Yahuwah, who was the lamb slain before the foundations of the earth. So this is YAHUSHA is going to be sovereign over the whole house, Barak Yahuwah. And they shall all have one shepherd, and walk in my right ruling, and guard my laws, and shall do them. And they shall dwell in the land I have given to Yaakov my servant, where your fathers dwelt, and they shall dwell in it, they, their children, and their children's children, forever. And my servant, and it's going to be again, it says Dawood by their prince forever, but we know that this who it ultimately points to is YAHUSHA, and it ultimately points to Yahuwah, and it ultimately points to Yahuwah. And I shall make a covenant of peace with them, an everlasting covenant it is with them. And I shall place them and increase them, and shall place my set apart place in their midst forever, and my dwelling place shall be over them, and I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people, and the nation shall know that I, Yahuwah, am setting Israel apart, when my set apart place is in their midst forever. Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah. So he is talking about Israel, not a Christian church. He is not talking about no Christian church being raptured. He is talking about the first resurrection, the resurrection of his first fruit, the first fruit being gathered and given to the high priest, YAHUSHA, given to the high priest, the Kahan Gadol, Barak Yahuwah. So let's read Matthew's chapter 24, verse 29 through 31. And immediately after the distress of those days, the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give its light, and the stars shall fall from the Shamaim, and the powers of the Shamaim shall be shaken. And then the sign of the son of Adam shall appear in the Shamaim. Then all the tribes of the earth shall mourn, and they shall see the son of Adam coming on the cloud of the Shamaim heavens with power and much esteem. And he shall send his messengers with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his chosen ones from the four winds, from the end of the from one end of the heavens to the other. So we got distress, which means tribulations or affliction. It is the Strong's G2347, the Strong's G2347, which is tribulations, afflictions, trouble, anguish, persecutions, burdens, to be afflicted. Here's another witness. Jeremiah chapter 16, verses 19 through 21. O Yahuwah, my strength and my stronghold and my refuge. In the day of distress, the nations shall come to you from the end of the earth and say, our fathers have inherited only falsehood, futility, and there is no value in them. Would a man make a mighty one for himself, which are not mighty ones? Therefore, see, I am causing them to know. This time I cause them to know my hand and my might, and they shall know that my name is Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 1 through 7. The word that came to Yirmiyahu from Yahuwah, saying, Thus spoke Yahuwah Elohim of Israel, saying, write in a book for yourself all the words that I have spoken to you. For look, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, when I shall turn back the captivity of my people, Israel and Yahudah, declares Yahuwah, and I shall bring them back to the land that I gave to their fathers, and let them possess it. And these are the words Yahuwah spoke concerning Israel and Yahudah. For this is what Yahuwah said, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. Ask now, and see if a man is giving birth. Why do I see every man with his hand on his loins like a woman in labor, and all faces turn pale? Oh, for great is that day, there is none like it. And it is the time of Yaakov's distress. It is the time of Yaakov's distress, but he shall be delivered out of it. Barak Yahuwah. So it is the time for Yaakov's distress, Jacob's tribulation, his affliction, his trouble, his anguish, his persecution, his burden to be afflicted. It is time for Yaakov's distress. Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Do not despise the chastisement of Yahuwah, but those who are coming. Yahudah goes first, but those who are left, those are going to have to endure. Those who have to be purged even more is going to have to endure the distress of those days. This ain't no what the world say tribulations, but this is for his son. This is a whooping. You know, you have that son that you gotta whoop a little harder and a little longer for him to gain some understanding, for him to turn. He says to do not spare the rod. Do not spare the rod. So he has to whoop. He's gonna whoop, Jacob a little harder, a little stronger, to turn the hearts of man back to him, Barak Yahuwah, because he loves his son. He loves his son, but we have to be willing to obey and turn back to his righteous Torah. To turn back to his righteous Torah. All right, 1 second. Let me see where I'm at. All right, Leviticus, the 23rd chapter, verses 23 to 25. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel, saying, in the 7th new moon, or for lack of better terms, this is in the 7th new month, on the first day of the new month, you have a rest. We are to rest. A remembrance of Torah. You do no servile work, and you shall bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. You are to bring an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. An offering of what? We do not slaughter lambs and bulls, so bring an offering of what? Of the praises, of a pure praise, of a clean heart, a pure praise that is going to be well accepted to Yahuwah. With the witness of YAHUSHA HaMashiach, but we ought to bring a pure praise, a pure offering to him. We render up the bulls of our lips, giving thanks to his name. Barak Yahuwah. Torah, in the Strongs, people do not have a problem celebrating, but do you know what you are celebrating? Torora means to alarm, a battle cry. Blowing the trumpets, joy, joyful sound, resounding shout, shout of alarm, shout of joy, signal, trumpets blast, war cries. Barak Yahuwah. So let's read Numbers chapter 28, 1 through 15. Numbers chapter 28, 1 through 15. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, command the children of Israel, and you shall say to them, take heed to bring my offering, my food, for my offering made by fire as a sweet fragrance to me. Take heed. Take heed. Ain't nothing done away with. Torah is eternal. Take heed to bring him his offering, his food. For my offering made by fire as a sweet fragrance to me at the appointed times. And you shall say to them, this is the offering made by fire which you bring to Yahuwah. 2 male lambs a year old, perfect ones, daily. Sometime. No. Every other day. No. It says daily. Daily, a continual ascending offering. The one lamb you prepare in the morning, and the other lamb you prepare between the evenings, with the tenth of an ephah of fine flour, as a grain offering mixed with 1/4 of a hin of pressed oil, a continual ascending offering, which was offered at Mount Sinai for a sweet fragrance, an offering made by fire to Yahuwah, and its drink offering, 1/4 of a hin for each lamb. Pour out the drink to Yahuwah as an offering to the set apart place. And the other lamb you prepare between the evenings, as the morning grain offering, and its drink offering you prepare in as an offering made by fire, a sweet fragrance to Yahuwah. And on the Sabbath day, 2 lambs a year old, perfect ones, and 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour of your new moon, or new month rather. You bring near an ascending offering to Yahuwah, 2 young bulls and 1 ram, and 7 lambs a year old, perfect ones, 3/10 of an ephah of fine flour, as a grain offering mixed with oil for each bull, 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour, as a grain offering mixed with oil for the 1 ram, and 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil, as a grain offering for each lamb, as an ascending offering of sweet fragrance, an offering made by fire to Yahuwah, and their drink offering, and a half a hin of wine for a bull, and 1/3 of a hin for a ram, and 1/4 of a hin for a lamb. This is the ascending offering for each new month throughout the new months of the year. And 1 male goat as a sin offering to Yahuwah is prepared, besides the continual ascending offering and its drink offering. Barak Yahuwah. And we already addressed the fact that it is a celebration. Bring him his food at the appointed time. That has nothing to do with our food. We must bring him his food at the appointed time. There are appointed times. Continual in this chapter alludes to something without end. We see that we are to bring him a continual offering, something without end. It also said daily. Barak Yahuwah, the morning offering and the evening offering, daily. Here he is talking about the daily continual offering, 1 in the morning and 1 in the evening, continuing, the best of the wine, the best of the bread. It points to the Messiah, but it also points to something else. What else does it point to? Numbers chapter 29, verses 1 through 6. Let's read. And in the 7th new month, on the first day of the new month, you have a set apart gathering. You do no servile work. It is Yom Teruah, and you shall prepare an ascending offering as a sweet fragrance to Yahuwah. 1 young bull, 1 ram, 7 lambs, a year old, perfect ones, and their grain offering, fine flour mixed with oil, 3/10 of an ephah for the bull, 2/10 for the ram, and 1/10 for each of the 7 lambs, and 1 male goat as a sin offering to make atonement for you, beside the ascending offering with its grain offering for the new month, the continual ascending offering with its grain offering, and their drink offering, according to their right ruling, as a sweet fragrance, an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. An offering made by fire to Yahuwah. We are to bring him his food for the new month, and also the Feast of Trumpets. Numbers 28 is the offerings required for the new month. These are still required. Numbers 29 is the offering for Feast of Trumpets, and they are separate. They are separate. There are additional offerings required on this day. There are that are not required on any other feast day. This is a big feast and a big celebration when we speaking on Yom Teruah. It is a big feast and a big celebration because there are many offerings that we are to bring on this feast, and we are not to come to the feast with unclean hands, Barak Yahuwah, but we are to be cleansed. We are not to approach a sovereign with any uncleanness on us, with any sin on us. Barak Yahuwah. Al Elohim. Let's go to Psalms 50, 123. Al Elohim, Yahuwah shall speak, and he shall call the earth from the rising of the sun till its going down from Zion, the perfection of loveliness. Elohim shall shine forth. Our Elohim comes and is not silenced. A fire consumes before him, and it shall be very stormy all around him. He calls to the heavens from above and the earth to rightly rule his people. Gather my loving committed ones together to me, those who have made a covenant with me by slaughterings. By slaughterings. Then the heavens declares his righteousness, for Elohim himself is judge. Salah, hear, O my people, and I speak, O Yisrael, and I witness against you. I am Elohim, your Elohim. I do not reprove you for your slaughterings, and your ascending offerings are continually before me. I do not take a bull from your house, no, nor goats out of your pens. For every beast of the forest is mine, the cattle of 1,000 hills. I know all the birds of the mountains, and all moving in my fields are mine. If I was hungry, I would speak to you. If I was hungry, I would not speak to you. For the world is mine, and all that fills it. Do I eat the flesh of bulls, or drink the blood of goats? Slaughter thanksgivings to Elohim. Slaughter thanksgivings to Elohim, and pay your vows to the Most High Yahuwah. And call upon me in the day of distress. Call upon him on the day of distress. We just read about distress and what it pointed to. Jacob's distress. Call upon Yahuwah in the day of distress, because he is our deliverer. He is our deliverer. Barak Yahuwah. Let me rescue you, and you esteem me. But to the wrong Elohim said, what right have you to recite my laws or take my covenant in your mouth, while you hated instructions and cast my words behind you? When you saw a thief, you were pleased with him, and you take parts with adulterers. You let your mouth loose to evil, and your tongue frames deceit. You speak against your brother. You slander your own mother's son. You have done this, and I kept silence. You have thought that I was altogether like you. I rebuke you and set it in order before your eyes. Understand this, please. You who forget a lure, lest I tear you in pieces, with no one to deliver. Whoever slaughters praise, esteem me. And to him who prepares a way, I show the deliverance of Elohim. Whoever slaughter praises esteems Yahuwah. We must bring him his food. We must praise him. Give him thanks, for he is worthy. Barak Yahuwah, for he is worthy. We must slaughter praise to Yahuwah, giving thanks to him for everything that he has done, thanking him for preparing a body for himself and coming in the flesh to deliver us from the hands of Pharaoh, to deliver us from the hands of Egypt, to deliver us from the hands of sin and crime and death. Barak Yahuwah. Kapha, 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 5 through 10. You also as living stones are built up a spiritual house, a set-apart priesthood, to offer up spiritual slaughter offerings acceptable to Elohim through YAHUSHA Messiah. We are also those who are called by names are being built up as spiritual house, a set-apart priesthood to offer up spiritual slaughtering offerings acceptable to Elohim through YAHUSHA Messiah. Because it is contained in the scripture, see, I lay in Zion a chief cornerstone, chosen, precious. He who believes on him shall by no means be put to shame. Believe on who? YAHUSHA, the Messiah. He is the door. He is the door to our salvation. Us who believe on him, the door, believing that Yahuwah came in the flesh. Yahuwah came in the flesh, Barak Yahuwah, and manifested a body for himself in the form of YAHUSHA and delivered us from our crimes. Those who believe on him shall by no means be put to shame. This preciousness then is for you who believe. But to those who are disobedient, so that's cut dry. Those who believe obey. We obey all the commandments. We keep his Shabbat. We keep his feast days. Barak Yahuwah. We keep his instructions. We desire with our whole heart to obey him. But to those who are disobedient, the stone which the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone, and a stone of stumbling, and a rock that makes for falling. Who stumble because they are disobedient. Who stumble because they are disobedient to the word, to which they also were appointed, to which they also, every man was appointed to obey the Torah. Every man was appointed to obey the Torah. But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a set-apart nation, a people for a possession, that you should proclaim the praises. The what? Proclaim the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light, who once were not a people, but now the people of Elohim, who had not obtained compassion, but now obtain compassion. Barak Yahuwah. Extra ones for the feast of blowing of the trumpets for the new month and the daily continual offering. We are a nation of priests, and we still offer slaughtering. We now offer spiritual slaughtering of thanksgiving, the bulls of our lips, giving thanks to his name. Giving thanks to his name. Let's read a couple of Psalms, or read a Psalms. We're going to read some Psalms in Leviticus, and then we're going to go to Hosea. So we'll start off with Psalms 34:1. I bless Yahuwah at all times. His praise is continually in my mouth. Every day, his praise should be continually in your mouth. We must obey. Every day, his praise should be continually in our mouths. Leviticus chapter 7, verse 11. And this is the Torah of the slaughtering of peace offering, which is brought to Yahuwah. And this is the Torah of slaughtering of peace offering, which is brought to Yahuwah. We must have a peace offering brought to Yahuwah. Thanksgiving, we must render up the bulls of our lips. Hosea chapter 14, verses 2. O him, take away all crookedness and accept what is good. And we render the bulls of our lips. Barak Yahuwah. Psalms chapter 55, verses 55, chapter 55, verses 16 through 17. I call upon Yahuwah, and Yahuwah saves me. Evening and morning and at noon I complain and moan, and he hears my voice. Cry out, cry out, cry out, sing praises to the Master. Give him the esteem. Barak Yahuwah. Psalms 119, 108. Please accept the voluntary offering of my mouth. Voluntary offering of my mouth, O Yahuwah, and teach me your right ruling. And teach me your right ruling. All right, we're going to go Jubilees chapter 6, verses 23 to 29. And on the new month of the 4th month, the mouths of the depths of the abyss beneath were closed. And on the new month of the 7th month, all the mouths of the abyss of the earth were opened, and the waters began to descend into them. And on the new moon of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains were seen, and Noah was glad. And on this account he ordained them for himself as feast for a memorial forever. And thus they are they ordained. And they placed them on the heavenly tablets. Each had 13 weeks from one to another, past their memorial. From the first to the second, and from the second to the third, and from the third to the fourth. Rock Yahuwah. Appointed times. Appointed times. All right, we're going to go to Numbers chapter 10, verse 10. And it reads, and in the day of your gladness, and in your appointed times, and at the beginning of your new months, you shall blow the trumpets over your ascending offering, and over your slaughter, and over your slaughterings. Barak Yahuwah. All right, we're going to read Baruch chapter 1, verses 10 through 13. Now they wrote, we are sending you money to pay for burnt offerings, for sin, and increase. Prepare oblations and offer them on the altar of Yahuwah or Elohim. And pray for the long life of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and his son Belshazzar, that they may endure on earth as long as the heavens endure. And that Yahuwah may give us strength and enlighten our eyes, so that we may lead our lives under the protection of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and of his son Belshazzar, and that we may serve them for a long time and win their favor. Also pray to Yahuwah, our Elohim, because we have sinned against him. In the anger and fury, Yahuwah has still not turned away from us. Barak Yahuwah. So we see that even in captivity, that they were offering the bulls of their lips. They were in Babel, and they were offering in spirit and in truth. Even in captivity, we are to offer up slaughtering offerings to Yahuwah, giving thanks to his name. So, Barak Yahuwah. This is the conclusion of the whole matter of Yom Teruah. I pray that this has been edifying. I pray that Yahuwah continue to humble me, that ain't none of these words mine, but these are of the Master. And I pray that he allowed me to continue to overcome this, because I'm new to this, and Barak Yahuwah allowed me to give me strength to proclaim his word in boldness, and fill me with humility, and fill me with humility and more love and more strength to do his will. I pray that Yahuwah go before each and every one of y'all, and that he allows this seed that has been planted to be watered, that he waters the seed that was just now brought out, Barak Yahuwah, because I cannot do anything of myself, and I just desire to be obedient to Yahuwah and desire to do His will. And I pray that He teaches me all things, that I'm led by His ruach and not according to the wicked inclinations of this flesh. I pray that Yahuwah guard all of y'all. I pray for the whole house of Yasharal. I pray for the nations till the next time. So be it.